Hey everyone. So today we are going to talk about something that confuses a lot of people in IT, the difference between Active Directory and LDAP. Now, if you have ever worked with user logins, company networks, or even just tried to connect an app to some kind of authentication system, you have probably heard both these terms thrown around like they are the same thing. And honestly, it's easy to mix them up, but here's the thing, they are not the same. They're related, yes, but they serve different roles, and understanding that difference can save you a ton of confusion and headaches. So, in this video, we are going to break it down into a super simple way what LDAP actually is, what Active Directory does, and how they work together behind the scenes. So, no heavy jargon, no overcomplicated definitions, just the clarity you actually need. So, let's get into it. So understanding the difference between LDAP and Active Directory. So LDAP is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. It is an open source protocol for accessing the directory services, while Active Directory is a Microsoft proprietary directory service that uses LDAP among other protocols. Active Directory is designed for Windows-based networks, managing the users, devices, while LDAP is a platform neutral and used to query information quickly. So let's see. First, about LDAP. LDAP is the software protocol, like I said. It is an open source protocol for accessing the directory services. It serves as the universal language for accessing and managing the directory services across the network. Now, it's a protocol for communicating with the directories, and Active Directory is the actual database and service that stores the network data. So the relationship is Active Directory uses LDAP to let the applications authenticate users. And the platform is Active Directory, is Microsoft centric, whereas LDAP is neutral, and it is, we could say, platform or vendor neutral, supporting Windows, Linux, Mac operating systems. Then there are different security aspects as well. Security in AD in Active Directory includes advanced security like Kerberos, while LDAP often relies on TLS for security. So let's see ahead. Active Directory, like I said, it's the Microsoft directory service. It's Microsoft's integrated directory service. It's a Microsoft product which runs exclusively on Windows Server platforms. It has a directory database which stores the comprehensive information about users, computers, network resources. Its core functions are providing authentication, authorization, user or group management, and group policy enforcement. The proprietary system, it is for deep integration with Microsoft services and ecosystems. The relationship, the protocol meets the services, and the relationship here would be like, for example, one thing that we are going to understand here is the two essential technologies that power the modern network authentication and directory management. Like we have just discussed of LDAP. LDAP is the software protocol that serves the universal language for accessing and managing the directory services across networks. You can think of it as the how-to guide for accessing the directory data. It defines the rules and methods for communication, but it's not the directory itself. It's a standard language for querying the directory information. The platform is agnostic. It works with Windows, Linux, Mac OS. It's open source implementation, and it's flexible and widely supported. Now, when we talk about the relationship, so the relationship for the protocol, LDAP and Active Directory, is how they connect is the first thing. So Active Directory supports LDAP as one of its primary protocols for applications and systems to access the directory data using standardized language, which is LDAP here. The key distinction here is LDAP is not a service you install. You install directory services like OpenLDAP or Active Directory that speaks the LDAP protocol. That's the relationship here. So LDAP is the open protocol for directory access. Active Directory is Microsoft Directory Service implementation, and the overlap is the common criteria here is standardized queries and directory schema. So we can use an analogy here. A useful analogy is LDAP is like the postal service, the protocol for sending and receiving mail, while Active Directory is like a specific company's mail room and filing system, the system that stores and manages the emails. So that is the relationship. Then next is the key differences. Now, key differences, as we have just discussed, as a recap, LDAP is a protocol. It's a standardized method for accessing the directory information across different platforms and systems. Active Directory is an implementation. It's a complete Microsoft product that implements directory services with LDAP support. The flexibility is LDAP works across the different platforms or vendors like Microsoft, Linux, Unix systems. Active Directory is Windows only. In terms of deployment, you can install Active Directory to get directory services. Active Directory uses LDAP to communicate. Then about the LDAP protocol, what are the technical details? Now, about the technical details, there are two things we need to consider. What LDAP enables and the common LDAP implementations. So what LDAP enables? LDAP enables query, the directory. You can say the directory entries using standardized syntax. It can add, modify, delete. It can perform these functions for directory records. It can authenticate users. That's an important part of it as its functions. Authenticate users against the directory services. It can search and browse the directory hierarchies. So that is what LDAP enables. Then common LDAP implementations are Open LDAP, which is open source. Novell eDirectory, Apache directory server, 389 directory server. So these are some common LDAP implementations. Now, about Active Directory core components, it provides domain services, lightweight directory services, certificate services, and licensing services. So as domain services, that is the centralized authentication and authorization for network resources using the domain controllers. Lightweight directory services deploy directory-enabled applications without full Active Directory infrastructure. Certificate services, the enterprise PKI, public key infrastructure, for digital certificates and encryption. And licensing services manage and track the Microsoft software licensing across the organization. Now, some real-world use cases would be enterprise authentication, cross-platform integration, single sign-on, resource management. So enterprise authentication, where Active Directory manages millions of user accounts, authenticating logins across Windows, workstations, servers, and applications. Cross-platform integration, where LDAP enables Linux servers, Mac OS systems, applications to authenticate against Active Directory or other directory services. Single sign-on, where Active Directory provides centralized authentication, so the users log in once and access multiple systems without re-entering their credentials. Resource management, Active Directory organizes the computers, printers, share folders into logical groups for efficient administrators. So these are some use cases of it. So as some common use cases, you can use Active Directory for enterprise Windows environment requiring group policy management, whereas you use LDAP for lightweight directory querying or cross-platform authentication. Essentially, LDAP is the language which is used to talk to directory services, and Active Directory is the most common store that understands that language. That is what the key parameter to understand the key difference between the Active Directory and LDAP is. Now, choosing the right solution, choose Active Directory when your environment is primarily window-based. So Windows environment goes for the Active Directory because there is a specific platform support, that is Windows, and for Microsoft, Active Directory is the solution. You need deep Microsoft integration, Active Directory would be the right choice. If you require group policy management, if you're already invested in Microsoft ecosystems, or you need comprehensive directory management, that's where Active Directory would be the choice. Other than that, for LDAP, where would you consider LDAP only solution? That is when you have heterogeneous operating system environments, like a mixed environment with different platforms and vendors. You prefer open source solutions, so LDAP would be the right choice. You need platform independence, and you require the simpler infrastructure, and your requirements are much simpler, and you want to avoid vendor lock-in. So that is where LDAP is the choice. So that is it. I hope that clears the confusion between what Active Directory and LDAP actually is. And hence the key takeaways today from this topic is LDAP is a protocol, Active Directory is a product. So LDAP defines how to access directory data. Active Directory implements a completely specific directory service, a key store, or a database, we can say, directory store. Active Directory supports LDAP. It uses LDAP as one of its communication protocol. And Active Directory is Windows only, LDAP is universal. Active Directory runs on Windows Server only, LDAP works across all platforms. They work together, so LDAP provides the language, whereas Active Directory provides the directory data and the services. And that is it. So thank you all for listening and hope you liked the video. Thank you.